Thanks for coming out on a Monday evening, taking your week to join us in this meeting. I guarantee we'll make it worth your while. The time that this takes, about 1 hour, we'll end the meeting about 7:30 this evening. We'll give people a couple more minutes to join. People are still joining the call. You'll want to be sure and stay on till the end of this call, because at the end of the call, just before the end, we will pull a prize winner. So one of you in the audience will win a prize at the end of the call. So stay tuned for that. We'll give people just a couple more minutes here. Still joining the call. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I'll go over some introductions here. Nikki and Sanjeev are part of the team as well. They're out of the country, so they're not able to join this today, but they'll be here on the next calls. And Asif is on the call. He'll be helping moderate the call. Asif, I guess you're muted. See if I can let you unmute yourself. Jared, I need help. So the purpose of these meetings are to help to get to learn to know each other better. And the purpose of Eagle City Multifamily, we acquire and operate apartments, and we open the deals up to investors, to individuals. And that's what we'll be talking about here on the call today, is how you can be involved in our apartment acquisitions and be a direct owner in apartments. And so with that, let me unmute. Okay, I need help to unmute. Just a minute while I there we go. Asif, are you unmuted here? Okay. Okay.
Now is allow me to do it. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
That's good.
I will bring the slide back up for you, Asif.
Charles.
All right. So our guest speaker for today is Gabriel Craft. Gabriel is he has a unique skill. His background is a project management, correct me if I'm wrong. And his expertise is to manage a complex project and make sure the project will perform, and the business plan will perform according to the due diligence. He is a GP of over 500 apartments, and I think more than 2,000 apartments, 1,800 apartments. He is an LP. He lives in Texas, and he's very aggressive and motivated. Syndicator and a GP. Now, we did one closing with him in last year, December 26 or 27 for Treetop. So I would like to give a floor to Mr. Gabriel to come on and tell us what he did.
Absolutely. But before I do that, Asif, I just want to say thank you, and Herb, thank you guys for letting me be on your stage and get a chance to connect with your audience here. I know we've got an intimate group that's live, but hopefully, you know, this reaches some other folks in your guys' circle. So we'll go through the whole thing from beginning to end. I hope that I can keep it to 10, 15 minutes, and then we can just open up for conversations. Another thing I need to call out, though, is Herb, you are looking buff, my friend. I'm seeing those muscles. I know you've been doing, in all seriousness, I know you've been doing the hard 75 hard, and it's been a little bit of an inspiration to me. So I've got my water over there. I've got maybe 15 or 20 minutes more working out to do today, but I'm definitely trying to follow in your footsteps and stick to a good diet and get my fitness on. Because if we make all this money in multifamily and we don't live long enough to spend it, it's kind of useless, right?
That's right. That's my son, Jared, by the way, the Beast Muscle. He's on helping moderate the sound and everything. So
perfect.
Shout out to my son, Jared. That's his channel.
I'll try to turn my phones off. I've got quite a few of them going. So I'll try to keep any distractions away. But, you know, what I wanted to show you guys today was the deal that me, Asif, and Herb took down December 23rd of last year, and walk you through sort of the key pieces about making that project successful. You know, Herb and Asif were generous enough to highlight that something in my background is having had some success in the past working through complex projects. And that is what multifamily sponsors do, right? They've got to work through a lot of complex aspects of this business. And these are businesses. Don't be fooled. You're not just buying a single family house or a small apartment. These are giant businesses that have multiple employees. In the case of Treetop that I'll show you today, we have 4 employees, 2 leasing and office employees, and 2 people on the maintenance staff. Not to mention a handful of asset managers. You know, Herb and Asif are part of our team, and Monica is also part of our team on that property. So just wanted to go through that deck. If you give me sharing power here, I will do so. And you know, if there's anybody, including you, Charles, or anybody else on that wants a copy of some fun reading, including you, Asif and Herb and Monica, I just got a box of these. So I'm very excited. I did a book that we just published, and it was a blast to, you know, finally publish a book. I'm right on here next to where we got Robert Helms, and then there's little old me underneath there.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah, it was cool. Okay. And it's just a bunch of short stories, a bunch of, you know, 12 to 14 pages each author. It's a big host of us. It's kind of all coordinated and consolidated by this lovely man, Kyle Wilson, who used to work with Zig Ziglar. So anyways, I just wanted to let you guys know that. So Asif, Herb, any of your followers that want one, if they want to connect with me, I will send them one of my books, because I bought myself more than enough to give away a bunch and give people a chance to read a bunch of cool stories, including mine, which is a pretty short one. So with that said, with all the distraction aside, let me start presenting. So let's see if I have the deck I want pulled up. Let's see. Let's go with this bad boy here. Yes. So yes, perfect. Okay, so you guys can see my screen. I'm going to go into slide mode and present a little bit on our mastermind today about this Treetop apartment deal. So this was a deal that came into me, Asif, and Herb's world in June of last year, when things were really changing in terms of the financing on projects. And thankfully, some of my other teammates that I'll show you in a few slides noted that there is an opportunity here because of the debt on this deal. So I'm going to walk you through it, but at a high level, to take one of these down, you got to have a great team surrounding you. So we're going to walk through a few things, but just some of the stats. It's 128 unit, 1970 construction, and it's located in Grand Prairie. If you're familiar with Dallas and Fort Worth, it sits right in between the two. So Fort Worth's a big circle, Dallas is a big circle, Grand Prairie sits right in between. Oh, there we go. So yeah, what we'll look at briefly, and because of the intimate size of this group, I can go very quickly through some of these items. We'll look at the property photos. I'll introduce who was on the team and talk about what we loved about the investment highlights, as well as the business plan. There are a few details I want to dive into relating to the business plan because I think they're helpful. Like, this isn't about me or show and tell. We tried to highlight a few takeaways and key things for people to understand, both when they're looking to sponsor deals, right? Like me, Herb, and Asif, and Monica, but also when they're, beginning their passive investor journey, and they're looking to invest in other people's deals. I'll show some of the financial projections and provide some final thoughts about this deal, but I thought it was a pretty dorky little saying that I wrote there at the bottom that I created. Contrary to previous scientific findings, we now know that money really does grow on trees. As you will see, 16.5% is the rate or projected rate of return for this particular asset. So here is the apartment complex. You'll note a small swimming pool in the bottom left corner of the center portion of our apartment complex. And then there's, these sort of pitched roof gray buildings that surround and go all the way around the outside of the building. There's 128 units set in 16 buildings. And we also have a leasing office there right next to the pool. What I really like about this picture, though, is it gives a good view of sort of how it sits. So in the background to your sort of upper left, you'll see Highway 161, which also known as President George Bush Tollway. It's a major highway. 70,000 people are driving through that thing, every month. It has got major traffic, and because of that, apartment buildings that sit right off of a major highway, they typically do pretty well in terms of getting drive-by traffic and getting attention. But we noticed before we bought this thing that they were not taking advantage of their location. They didn't have any banner signs. It looked kind of funky and old. They hadn't painted it in, or at least made an interesting attempt at painting it in a while, and really weren't taking advantage of its great location. In addition, something that we look for that's fundamental is, like, are there jobs in this area? And Dallas-Fort Worth in general has strong jobs throughout, but when you find something that's really close to major employers, it's definitely worth taking a look at. And across the street in the distance, you see some kind of cream, bland looking buildings. Those are the Lockheed Martin facilities. There are 4 major components to Lockheed Martin's products that they create, and they create them across the road there. So a lot of jobs. I think 15 of the leases when we did the lease audit in August had an employment across the street. There's also an Amazon fulfillment and another large logistics provider, each that provide us with about 10 tenants currently. So there's just a lot of major employers right here. And we found, that they have strong employment and therefore strong ability to kind of pay, market rate rents. So I hope, is this just whoever's on right now with me, Charles or Monica, just give me a thumbs up if this is at all helpful and sort of we're going at the right pace, or if you guys want me to pick it up, just let me know.
You're doing great.
All right. Thank you.
Love it.
All right. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate you. Thank you, Monica. So yeah, a few pictures of the asset. We've got the swimming pool that's, frankly clean, but a little sleepy and in need of some TLC. We have looked at that swimming pool and thought, man, this place would be a great place to hang out in the summertime if only it had some, a little bit more of the modern look and feel to it. Here's our leasing office, a decent leasing office, a decent size, a decent setup for the staff that lives inside. But we still plan to do some major renovations. And you see the inside of leasing office on the bottom left and some of our exteriors on the bottom right. One of my partners on this deal, Sean Griffith, he has a saying about it is, it's a perfectly fine and suitable property, but it definitely looks a little tired. And our job with the renovation budget that we've been able to put together for this property is to kind of bring it back to life and make it pop even more so than it does now. The interiors are nice on this property, though. That we have huge interiors. So it's one of my favorite parts. It's a decent mix of 1s, 2s, and 3s. People in Dallas really like the 2 and 3 bedrooms. Like obviously you can afford to kind of fit more people and more payers inside of bigger units. And these units are on the very large size side of the equation. They've also mostly been renovated. So about 100 of the 128 have been renovated to this level. A handful have been renovated somewhere in between. About 8 or 9 have been renovated somewhere in between. And 20 had not been renovated before we took over. Although we took over December 23rd, and I just left there today. We've been after it the last couple months. So I'd actually say that we're whittled down to single digits in terms of the number of properties, a number of units that are still classic. And they're just classic because the people that have been living in them for all this time have refused to sort of move out and have continued to adjust the rents as we push rents up. So I'd said this is not like show and tell or all about, our deal. I think this is really more what kind of takeaways can this group have for your own lives and for your business. And I think the one mini lesson that I'll call out here is that these big deals don't always take a ton of GPs, but in some cases they do take a lot of GPs, a lot of teammates to come together to, have the solution that needs to be done for the particular property. And I think it's really important as either a sponsor or even an investor looking at a sponsorship group to see whether there's coordination of the multiple GPs, because it's super key. Without a really cohesive group at the core of a deal, you will not solve all the problems related to the deal. And one of the ways that we found to really make sure there was coordination is we picked a great investor portal. So we used Cash Flow Portal, which I love. It's a very user-friendly portal for our investors. So that's how the investors, if you're an investor, that's how you would get your money put into the deal. It's how you would get your documents from your lawyer or from our lawyers, I should say. And it's also how you would keep track and be messaged whenever we've got our monthly updates or any interim updates that we send out to our investors, like your K1, for example, for your taxes after you become an investor. So a great portal is key to success for coordinating the GPs, and it's also key to success for communication with investors. And we loved ours. Another thing that I've seen groups skip over that's just super critical in any business that you create with a large group of people, right? People are the core of businesses, people, processes, and technology, right? And the people portion of it involves making sure people are clear on their expectations, roles, and responsibilities. Doing so upfront so that people aren't surprised by you either asking too much of them or not, not having the expectations set about what exactly they would be asked to do. So this group, I add one other quality that I think is important for a big group that I definitely see as I look at these pictures and I smile, is you should know, love, and trust the people you're going to do this business with. Because unlike a lot of other businesses, a multifamily apartment is not something that's easy to dissolve, right? You're going to be in that investment for 5 to 7 years. So all of these people put a smile on my face when I see their pictures. These are my friends, associates in business, but also people that I enjoy going to work with every day and enjoy reaching out to and connecting with, when the big problems pop up. I have no doubt that we'll get through them together, as opposed to, those groups that are sort of forced together and don't actually get along with one another. I think it's a critical piece to this business. All right, so the actual business that we bought with Treetop is something you can see here. And it's no mystery why this deal works, right? We have decent returns in the upper left-hand corner with strong projected annual cash flow at 6.1%. That's pretty strong these days. It really stood out to our investors, and they loved sort of the structure. We kept it a simple structure of an 80-20 split. And even though our going in cap rate of 4.9% didn't quite hit that 5% number that I like to look for on an asset in a neighborhood like this, there were reasons why this deal made sense. And the main reason is one you can find in the bottom right corner of all these numbers. And it's that 2.99% fixed interest rate on our debt. This was a loan assumption deal. So we were able to get 9.5 million of what we ended up being closer to $11 million of debt that we raised. But 9.5 million of that it was roughly 3 percentage points on our interest rate. it just sets us up for success to have a deal where the debt is so cheap, because as you will see when we look at the financials, it's very easy for us to make our payments and net a lot of operating income. And we're already doing that while also paying down our original loan balance. So when we go to sell this thing, we will have amortized a lot of our debt and still have provided a lot of net operating income for our investors. It was a really great setup for us in terms of the debt. So that's why this deal works at roughly 140 a door. And the lesson is this, and we're watching it happen right now. What works today may not work tomorrow. And so what we found while we were looking at deals in June, we kind of locked this up in June and July, where we really kind of had a successful communication and offer acceptance from the seller, was that while other people were looking at all this bridge debt and this floating rate debt, we were only looking at deals that had fixed rate debt that we could assume. And this one popped up and it was just a perfect fit into what we were looking for. And then, all of these things are going to continue to evolve, because right now I think everybody is like, hey, fixed rate debt only, fixed rate debt only. And yet a lot of that is sometimes like making decisions in the rear view mirror, because that made sense the last 6 months. But looking forward, where we have a strong chance of watching interest rates, dip down or at least flatline, that may not be the best solution. So you need to always be keeping a pulse for what the opportunities are. And me, Herb, Asif, Monica, Charles, we're all part of an ecosystem of investors here in Dallas, where we go to functions together. We meet with one another on videos like this, and as well in like live events like tomorrow. Me and some of my friends are throwing a live event. And it's just really important to stay in a network of people and keep a pulse out for what might be changing. So hate to beat a dead horse, but does that make sense? You guys give me like a thumbs up if that makes sense. Just in multifamily, it's so important to not get complacent. Thank you, Charles, Monica, appreciate you. And to really be putting yourself around people that are taking a look at what's changing. Okay, this one's pretty straightforward. And I think for passive investing, I think this is really critical to kind of take a look at some of these things and go, hey, are the deals that I'm looking at investing in, hitting some of these marks, right? We loved this deal. It had a sub-market that had grown considerably, had huge rent growth. And we saw that would likely continue and predicted to be continuing in the double-digit mark in this part of Grand Prairie. It's just sitting right off of the highway, in between the 20 and the 30 highway. And what you see is you got Treetop. You kind of drive by the exit for Treetop, which is called Pioneer Parkway. And the very next exit, you see all the new stuff. So you've got brand new IKEA, a super Walmart, not like the old funky looking Walmart, but like the brand new one, and a bunch of new entertainment. Which Dallas, when you create entertainment in an area in Dallas, it really draws a lot of love and attention, because we don't have a whole lot here like naturally to go out and go visit, like gigantic parks or wonderful mountains to retreat to. So man-made built activity centers like we have in Grand Prairie, they built a brand new, it's called Epic, and it's where a lot of people and families will go on the weekends to take advantage of some of the indoor water park aspects. So it's a lot like Great Wolf Lodge. And there's some other new stuff that they're building out that way. It's really become an epicenter of sort of the center of the DFW market. So we loved the submarket. I talked about the loan, and I should note that you want to look at the numbers, right? You can't just fall in love with the place and look at it and fall in love with the one loan number. You really got to make sure you can hit your business plan. And what we found with Treetop is we were already achieving the rents we were targeting. So they had already renovated a bunch of units, and every time they did a lease turn with the renovations, they were going past our pro forma, and we'd watch them go past $50 past our pro forma, and then $100 past our pro forma. And what that means is that we were already starting off on a really great foot with this property. So we felt like we had an opportunity here. We just needed to make sure we didn't overpay. And so we kind of held tight. They wanted, they had an offer for $23 million. That was pulled off the table when interest rates started going the other direction. And the person that was buying did not look at this as a loan assumption. They tried to put floating rate existing debt on it, and then they realized that they couldn't. And then, we argued with them a little bit. They wanted us in at 21, and we really pushed them hard and kept conservative here, and ended up purchasing this thing at 18. And because of that, we were able to build in a lot of conservativism into our business plan. There's just a lot of extra CapEx, a lot of higher potential for rent increases than we have in our business plan, a lot of assumptions about what expenses will go to that are sort of bumped up from where you would typically start on an underwriting, what most underwriters would underwrite to. And it just gave us a lot of confidence. And I'll say, now that we have the asset, I'm so grateful for the conservatism, because, there are unexpected things that happen when you take over a property. But I just got my first month's numbers back. We'll be sending those back out to our investors. Tomorrow night, we'll send an update to our investors that kind of covers, everything that they need to know about the first month's performance. And we did really well, despite everybody, including this property in Dallas, having lower than anticipated occupancy. There was just an interesting thing that happened. We haven't really figured it out. Me and my buddies have been talking about it a lot, whether it was seasonal or sort of the meeting of reality when it comes to pushing up expenses on everything in town. And so there's been a lot of properties that haven't, surpassed where they wanted to go in terms of occupancy. And this property, when we took it over from the previous ownership, sellers always do kind of a funny dance of shoving in people at the last minute to try to make their occupancy look good. So we've just been pulling off the Band-Aid so that we can kind of round the corner. And I looked at my numbers and was like, my numbers still outperform on NOI and net income. And I was like, that's so wonderful to have a deal that was robust enough that we're still ahead of plan, even when we have what I'd call your very first month, you're never supposed to really kick butt on it, right? So it's been a wonderful start. And I think that's really important to look at when you're a passive investor, is how conservative are these buyers being? All right, enough on that. And I'll pick up the pace a little bit. Want to check time. I think we're doing okay. We're at the half-hour mark, but I want to give Herb and Asif some time to kind of chat with you guys and cover off anything else they want to. So I just will call out a couple things here. A key to a successful project like this, professional property management. And most of us in town don't have our own property management company, so we lean on third-party property management companies. Which, we pay this team to manage our employees and some of the back-end accounting and some of the other, paying bills, making sure we get the income from residents and having a portal set up. Professional property management is pretty easy to find in Dallas, but good professional property management is darn near impossible to find. And I had, again, used that network of mine to learn about a small property management company that was growing. And I learned about them a couple of years ago, and I kept an eye on them. They had some employees that were foundational to one of the most successful property management companies in town that has since become unsuccessful because people like them have left. And so they founded Touchstone Property Management that was used to doing smaller properties. And my play here was that 128 units to most companies is too small to give too much care and heart and energy and soul into. They have to hire our people. They have to show up when they don't really want to. They have to find the time to look at this asset as their own in some ways, because they're trying to meet this business plan. And Touchstone saw our 128 unit property in a good location in Grand Prairie and said, this is one of the best properties in our portfolio. I would love to take this property. And that's exactly what they did. And it's exactly how they've lived up to it. The first 2 months they've had the property, they gave us 4 incredible teammates. I love our team there on site. And they have really pushed and treated this property like it was their own. That's the most you can ask for from a third-party property management. So I think you got to find the right one for your property. If this thing was 350 units, I don't think Touchstone would be the right fit. So, it really depends on the size of the property and the experience of the property management company. This property management company is really good at going in, kicking out tenants that aren't paying, making sure evictions get done on time, and then kind of bringing in and vetting great new people that make sense for that asset. And that's what I wanted for Treetop. So that's what they've been up to. We saw an opportunity to increase sort of the money you get back for utilities that are expensed by your tenants. And so we saw an opportunity there. They just hadn't really increased the amount per unit for a couple of years, and we saw some money to be made there. There was some recent green improvements because of the great loan we have. The owners had recently implemented water conservation, and so it didn't really show on their numbers. It didn't really help their cap rate. It didn't really help their cause when it came to selling. But we saw that as soon as we took over, we'd actually have lower utilities moving forward than they had the previous few years they'd owned the property. We see some opportunities for modernization and raising rents, as I already mentioned. And ultimately, we're going to put a lot of money into the property renovation so that there's like instant curb appeal as people are driving by. So it says 49 units on there have been remodeled. You know, as of today, I think all but 9 units have been remodeled to some level or degree. And right now, I'm finding myself with this big bucket because we were so conservative on remodeling budget. And what we're doing with it is we're going to the next level on the renovations and really making sure that small details are fixed and the time and money is spent on things like, you know, small imperfections on the drywall that most times people are just slapping some fresh paint over. We're actually going to fix that, or updating all the grills in the units because they haven't been updated for a few years, and there's a little bit of rust on some of them. Like doing the small things to make this not feel like a C-class asset on the inside. It's going to really feel like, you know, there's some modern luxuries that these tenants want. And I think that'll result in a lot larger or a better chance at raising the rents up to where the market is. So the takeaways are that there's a lot of things on here, but in reality, you're only going to be able to implement these things, you know, 80, 90, 100%. But it's not always going to be perfect, and it's not always going to be as quick as you want it to be. So if your deal only works if everything goes perfect on paper and everything the sponsors are telling you comes true instantly, then the deal doesn't really work. And I see a lot of that. I see a lot of people that are excited about getting their first deal. They write everything into the underwriting, and that's the only way that they can afford to pay the price they're going to pay to the broker or the seller. And ultimately, those deals don't really pencil out very well, and they don't really work out for the investors in the long run because you can't instantly implement every single thing you wanted to. You've got to have some things that are going to draw new income that you maybe don't bake in to your business plan so that it's an extra, and that if you need somewhere to kind of improve, you've got it. For example, on this deal, we are going to eventually implement cable and Wi-Fi, where basically we pay about $30 a month and we bill our tenants $75 a month. And that saves them, you know, on average, you know, $40, $50, $60 a month if they do both cable and internet currently. Our population, 80% of them already have those two things. So it's not going to be the biggest headache to try to move over to that system. So we didn't include any of that income in our financials or in our projections, as you'll see a little later, because we just felt like, you know, there are logistical concerns with that. It may not happen on day one. And so we want to have that in our back pocket as sort of an extra boost to the outcome for this deal, instead of just ensuring that it's happening on day one and then being disappointed when we actually don't get to implement, you know, because there's other things going on in the market or on your particular property. And so reality is where the real work takes place. And you just got to remember that. Like, there's a big difference between the part of the deal that takes place when you're throwing numbers in this Excel spreadsheet and the stuff that actually happens on a day-to-day basis, you know, when you're taking over the property. So with that, I'll just give you guys a warning. I've only got a couple more slides, and then I'll move on and let Herb and Asif sort of, you know, kind of open up the floor. But here's what we have in terms of inspiration for where we want to take it. It's that sort of modern look that we're looking for. That's also a darker paint than we currently have, so we can hide some of the imperfections. And then, you know, in the upper left-hand corner, I know it's a little hard to see because it's small, but the brick, I get mixed reviews. Some people like it. Some people say it's a little dated. I think the look that most of the people are going for in the DFW area is the white painted brick that looks super fresh. It stays fresh for multiple years, and it's really easy to touch up. And so that's what we're going to go with for this kind of modern look that we've gotten designed, and that sort of fake cedar look. We've already got some bids on it. It's just a really smart way to take advantage of the existing cedar siding without having to replace every single square foot of it, yet make the place look wonderful. So that's where we're headed. And then you can see some inspiration for our pool, for our kitchen remodels, and for our leasing office. Our leasing office is going to be beautiful. We have Lisa Landry coming on Tuesday, or sorry, Lisa Landry's team coming on tomorrow morning, and they're measuring out the leasing office for a design there, as well as a model unit. So they're going to furnish our model unit. If anybody ever has questions about why you would pay a design company to purchase furniture and build a design up for you, please feel free to reach out. I've got lots of testimonials as to why that is a great investment for these kind of assets.
So why is a great investment?
One, furniture procurement and what's it called? Putting the furniture together and storing it and moving out the old stuff. It's actually way more work than you give the companies credit for. So that's one aspect of it that I didn't know going in, that my teammates who have tried to refurnish and redesign a leasing office themselves had run into. Same thing for the model units. Like these companies that we're working with purchase amazing furniture, art, accessories, all of the lightings and fixtures is the word I was looking for. They purchase them extremely high quality and pretty darn fancy at pennies on the dollar compared to what me and you would purchase them for. So instead of me and you going to like a Home Depot and trying to make sure we've got the stuff from that in our design, they just handled the design and the furniture purchasing and the installation all for you. And I think that's where it just makes a huge difference, because when you run into markets like we're in today, DFW today, there's a lot of demand for DFW apartments. Don't get fooled by the news. Like there is people moving into DFW right and left, and renting makes a heck of a lot more sense than buying. And there's data to support that. But property to property, there are some properties that are struggling to keep their occupancy up. And there are some properties that are sitting at 97, 98% occupied consistently. And the difference between those two is really boils down to marketing and then having a great team that can close and lease. And marketing starts with the way things look and feel when you come into that leasing office, and the way things look and feel when you go visit that first model unit. And we believe that there is a huge monetary return for investing a little bit in your office and in a good solid model unit.
All right.
Substantiated by, my experienced teammates that have, 6 or 7 of these properties, similar C-class properties across, multiple markets. And all of them say that, the big game changer in terms of increasing occupancy and sort of being able to convert on all this marketing spend that you have was really those two aspects, the leasing office and the model unit. And when you're in a scenario where you're competing against people, finally, like you can't just, it's not as easy as it used to be in DFW to just fill up your apartment complex. You actually have to compete right now with other places as new things come online, and as the better parts of the operations and the better operators sort of stand out. One of the ways to stand out is being really sharp about anybody that comes in to your property has a great experience. Make it easy to lease. They don't have to go through all these crazy steps to get approved and to get their application in. It's like these very important steps on the marketing side of things I'm learning in real time are differentiators, and I'm watching our team kick butt, sort of get traction, and start to fill this place up with extremely qualified renters. It's making me excited. So yes, I'm big on marketing right now, including leasing offices and model units.
Okay.
If you guys have had a chance to read this, this is sort of the substantiation for how we think we are going to be able to double people's money, right? We raised about $9.5 million, and we're going to create about $9.5 million based on increasing rents to the market rents in year 1, and getting a little bit more other income from increasing the bill back to 80%. We have an opportunity, because our laundry contract runs out in August of this year, to buy our own laundry and make income off those machines. We are getting next to nothing on laundry income. So we actually will make more than what you see here, but we will definitely be driving annual income up with our own laundry machines. The bulk Wi-Fi, again, I'm showing it to you here, but it is not included in our underwriting, and our underwriting and performance also doesn't include all of our laundry income. So this is just a way to show you that, like, yes, we plan to very quickly be able to boost, the overall income annually by about 500K. And that, using a very conservative cap rate of 5.3, we feel like we can, double people's money or double the value of the investment in terms of the raised capital and then the actual end value of the property. Let's see. Yeah, Charles is on, so he likes to dork out with numbers. Let me dork out with numbers with everyone for just a little while. This spreadsheet, Herb's very familiar with it. Herb is a diligent underwriter, loves to take a look at new properties as they pop up, and we typically throw them in, a spreadsheet of this kind. There's a couple tabs I'll show you. I'm not going to go through the whole spreadsheet, but I pulled out, a few of the highlights that are helpful to see how this deal sort of played itself out. Again, it started at $23 million. That was the offer that was on the table. But by the time I got around to it in June, they were coming in at a more reasonable 21, 20, 19. And eventually we sort of held fast at 18, just over $18 million. Since there were not a lot of people that were underwriting this thing correctly. The correct way to underwrite it, I'm just saying that because we ended up winning it, is to underwrite it as a loan assumption and to raise a lot more money for a smaller deal like this. $18 million, people hadn't, until last summer, hadn't had to raise $9.5 million for an $18 million deal. It was something we were willing to take on because we built a big crew of people that had hungry investors that wanted some fixed rate, strong asset in a good neighborhood. And ultimately that was the way to underwrite this thing, but our competitors were not doing it. So every time our competitors underwrote something, it had floating rate debt, and then they'd go to the table to make their final offer, and their final offer would be worse than it was before, right? Because they kept having to sort of retrade themselves until they just looked at this deal and said, oh, it doesn't make sense. And so we were able to underwrite this with fixed rate debt at roughly 58% L to C, or loan to cost ratio, meaning we were able to get 58% of the money from the bank. And we actually ended up getting more than that from the bank. So you'll see we set our projected returns at 104 and 6% or 6.1%, which we felt was really strong. But we were planning on only getting $1 million supplemental, which is like money in addition to the money that you assume. We assumed 9.5 million. We were assuming I should stop using the word assuming. We thought we would get $1 million extra from the lender. We ended up getting $1.5 million extra because the property was performing pretty well. They take a look at the past month's performance for income and the last few months of expenses, and they sort of go, you know what? This thing actually warrants giving you another chunk of money. Now that other chunk of money is a little more expensive. It's not 2.99%. In fact, it came in well above 7%. So when you blend those two numbers of $1 million at like 7%, and $1.5 million at 7%, and $9.5 million at 2.99%, you get roughly 3.5%, 3.38 here on our underwriting. But again, we got a little bit larger supplemental. And you want to get as much money from the bank as possible on these deals. I mean, it just makes the most sense. There are certain scenarios where you would want to go and raise a bunch of cash to take it down and not have a bunch of bank debt. But for the most part, in this kind of a deal, you want to get as much money from the bank as possible. It just makes more sense than returning, 104% return to your investors over 5 years. So we had a plan to take about $1.2 million, above and beyond what we needed to close, and use that for unfinanced rehab. Obviously, with the supplemental going above and beyond where we thought, we ended up with a bit more money on the unfinanced rehab, and it's a good problem to have. We still hear rumblings of like anything can happen economically, disasters can happen, the Fed can push things too far. We just have to wait and see. And having a bunch of money there for when you need to wait and see, and if something pops up, we just felt that was the right way to go with this deal. So we definitely raised a lot, and we still have a lot of funds. We've been deploying, the initial CapEx, but I think we've been very diligent about how we spend that money. So we may even come in, at a very reasonable number for our CapEx and have some extra funds that we can either hold on to for a little while and take a look at things, or, when we decide we don't need it anymore, return it back to our investors. And so I don't like to do that, but I wanted to make sure in these uncertain times to make sure to raise enough to be safe, so that we're on the more conservative side for having a cash position that doesn't require any crazy decisions to be made. And then the last thing I'll call out on this slide is we actually pay off over $200,000 a year. In year one and moving forward, it just continues to increase. If you look at that bottom right-hand corner, we are paying off our principal. That is such an important thing that so many syndicators in Dallas sort of stopped doing. I know there's reasons for it, right? You can have a little more cash flow if you just go all interest-only deals. But the way these things are starting to shake out right now, it's pretty healthy to get better debt with less interest only. That allows you but buying at a rate where you're still cash flowing, even though you're paying down the principal. And that's what we're doing here on this deal.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the last things to dive into, just as lessons learned or things to think about. Loan assumptions are freaking hard. They take a long time. The deal may delay either on the buyer side or on the seller side. In our case, we didn't do anything wrong. We did everything we were supposed to do to assume this loan. We started the process in August, and we did not finish the process until December. And there's some things that I learned along the way. Try to give yourself plenty of ways to adjust your contract timelines, because if there's delays from the seller, like, you shouldn't be put in a position where you're not able to meet your contract requirements. And so you will either want to have some sort of loan contingency or something written in there that if the delay for the assumption is on the seller's end, then things can just continue to wait or move forward, or there's some rules and stipulations around that. I think the first draft of the contract we had didn't have anything in there about that, but we had brilliant lawyers who got along really well with the seller's lawyers, and the seller happened to be pretty darn easy to work with. He's a great guy named George out of Southern California, and his company was professional all along the way. So when we realized that his side had some issues with the loan we were trying to assume that they needed to remedy, we all adjusted the contract and allowed ourselves to just continue to extend and sort of wait for the process to play out. But you also need to know when you're doing a loan assumption, you have to use the originating company. In this case, it wasn't necessarily the lender I wanted to use. I'll leave it at that. No names will be dropped, but you are stuck with whoever originated the loan. And if they're a company with bad customer service and chaotic, it's going to add to your process that's already kind of chaotic as a sponsor, as you're trying to raise a lot of money, organize a lot of investors, and get a foothold on your business plan, all while dealing with craziness from a lender just because they're kind of a little sloppy or they don't really have strong technology to support their business. And then older properties means you need a little more margin of error. I'm so grateful in the first couple months that we built in plenty of margin of error. Like if we had just enough CapEx to make our plan work, or just enough ideas for income improvement to make our plan work, the plan wouldn't work. It's a 70s building right out of the gate. I had an unexpected plumbing or kitchen drain line that I needed to fix. Right, it was just a drain line, not the end of the world, but it's the kind of thing you're going to see on a 70s property. And if that make or breaks your business plan, you can do all the checking of systems you want to on these older buildings, but there will be things that pop up. You need to get really good at learning about the stuff you can't see, the stuff on top that you can't see, the stuff inside you can't see, and the stuff below you can't see. I'm talking about, roofing and electrical and plumbing specifically. There's some major areas you need to be able to understand when you're going in these older buildings. I feel like me, Asif, Herb, Monica, the team on this one, we put in a lot of energy on due diligence. We had tons of experts help us make a really smart bet, but we also built in margins of error so that this deal really still works great, even if we have to overspend our annual repair budget or we have to overspend on CapEx. And I think that's just a smart way to do it. The older you go, the more margin of error you need to have in your deals. And then pick a property management company that fits your business plan. I love our property management company for this property. I think that last part of the sentence is really important. You need to make sure you're doing it. We get involved with this company that fits your plan, and Touchstone fits our plan. They're great with C-class properties. They're great at collections. They're great at getting high quality tenants in. They're just great at finding talent for a smaller deal like this that only has 4 employees. That's really critical. They're great for getting people excited on property in terms of the staff and the community, and they fit. Now, if this was an A-class deal, and I was just dealing with really a different class of renter, I don't think Touchstone would be the optimal choice. I'd look at a different company. But I just think you need to be really smart about who you pick if you're going to use third party. And that's it. I will leave the rest of the time to Herb, Asif, or anyone attending to ask questions. I really appreciated everybody joining. If Charles, since you stayed on this whole time, you wanted to dork out and look at more details, you can. I have a couple more of the slides you're used to seeing on the back here, but I will ask Herb and Asif how you guys want to use the rest of the time.
Do we have any question from a participant? I didn't see anything in a chat box, but if you have, you can unmute yourself or raise your hand. We can allow you to talk. No? All right. I have a question. Do you think, Gabe, in current situation, you can increase the rent because the media and the market is talking right now that we are getting close to the inflation, and maybe we are going to see the negative rent increase?
So, most of the media talking, unless you're talking about like the Dallas Business Journal or, a specific article that's related to like a Marcus and Millichap report on Dallas and Fort Worth, I think you got to be really cautionary about looking at the whole United States and trends for the whole United States versus Dallas. Just like anything in real estate, it's a local game. So the question remains, will rents continue to increase in Grand Prairie, Texas? Is there a chance that they will go negative? And so I think that's really important just to call out, right? A lot of the data that's being thrown out there is nationwide. You really want to take a look at Dallas. Now, is Dallas invincible in terms of, this crazy growth that it's had and it continues to have? Is it always going to remain at double-digit growth per year? Heck no. We've already seen that stop. That stopped this winter. We saw a lot of pullback in a lot more vacancy than people anticipated, and a lot more pushback on rent increases than people anticipated. Now, the other reason you're seeing it is because the national source for a lot of us investors that go to, sort of the premium data partner is CoStar. So I own a membership to CoStar. I look at CoStar frequently in my market. And I know that CoStar can't possibly be right at this moment in time because they weren't right last summer. Last summer, they projected for the next 5 years, and they told me each quarter how much my rents were going to go up in that area. And they were double-digit numbers. And now I turn it on, and they're very flatlined for the next 2 years. They're not negative, but they're very flatlined in this particular submarket. And then they go up back up to like 2 or 2.5%.
Yeah.
What I find with CoStar and with a lot of these data sources is it is their job to be conservative. And I love that. That's great. They were not conservative last year, and they got us into a lot of trouble underwriting double-digit rent growth. What I think is we're probably going to see 3% across the board on increases in rent. I think we will still see some increases, and I think we will see the same, if not greater, increases on expenses. So it is a marginal bump in your actual NOI over the next few years. If we're just talking about over the next few months, I'm more rosy on what the spring and summertime will bring, because I do see people still moving to Treetop. Moving to Grand Prairie. Every source that I can find, it seems to be that a lot of people are moving. And on the top end of the market, the brand new builds, you've got a little bit of hyperinflation, a little bit of overbuilding. So depending on how dramatic they get with dropping their rent prices, if they don't drop them dramatically, they're not going to be taken away from my clientele or our clientele on this deal, because our clientele on this deal, they're paying $1,200 to $1,700. We're not talking about $2,100 to $2,500. That's just out of the budget of a lot of the people that'll end up staying at Treetop. And it's sort of a different class and asset. So it's a different set of questions to ask. I do think that if you continue to improve the way we are going to improve Treetop, we can increase rents in the year to come. I think there are some parts of some markets that are going to see all across the board negative rent increases. I think that's absolutely realistic in some smaller markets or markets like San Francisco, where you're already seeing 33% vacancy in some of the key parts of town because they had a bunch of tech layoffs. And that's added on top of just having stuff that's just too expensive for people to pay for, as we've seen, like eggs get to $7 a crate, and crazy things happen with inflation. So to answer your question in short, in Grand Prairie, I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling good. I think we will see rent increase, especially over the next couple of years. I do see that continuing to climb up. It'll climb up slower than anticipated. And it'll climb up a heck of a lot slower than the last couple of years, but I do think it'll climb up. The key thing to pay attention to is how much of those expenses going to climb up alongside it.
Yes. So I have another question. I'm not going to take too much time. Just okay. So which factor is the most important for you for selecting an apartment? Apartment class, aging, occupancy, or household income?
So read the list to me again.
Okay. Apartment class, either ABC.
Nope, not for
aging,
me.
apartment aging.
Nope, not for me. I'm not afraid of an old property.
Occupancy.
No, in fact, sometimes that's part of the business plan storyline. The one I'm chasing right now that I'm looking at has really low occupancy. That's why it makes it a good deal. These things are priced according to their performance. So
and what
I see an opportunity to and household income. If I had to choose those four right now, I would choose household income. I think you can't move these neighborhoods into better neighborhoods. I've experienced buying a pretty darn good asset in a crappy neighborhood before, and it is not fun. It's a pain in the neck because there's nothing you can do about your neighborhood. I mean, you can improve your community, you can improve your actual apartment community. But if you're looking at the median household income and you're looking at two equally important, equally good assets from an age and class perspective, I would always choose the one, of those qualities and assets you just lined up. I think finding the one that has the highest median income is really critical.
And what is the median income?
So in our neighborhood here, it's almost $56,000.
Okay, all right, that's good.
In Dallas, that's really strong. I was just taking a closer look at this the other day because we were trying to look at we're trying to source some off-market deals too. We're trying to look at some smaller deals that we could have people JV on. A couple of my friends, a couple of your friends, we buy them together. We don't syndicate them, right? We're looking into that. Yeah. And we really wanted to focus on the markets that made the most sense. I was surprised because I looked at the median income for almost every submarket in Dallas. I was surprised at how many of the big name areas have only a few locations where the median income is in the mid 50,000s or higher. There's not that many. You just got to look long and far before you find stuff where people are making more than 40, 50, 60, sorry, 40, 45 or $50,000 a year.
All right. I don't have any other question. Herb?
All righty. Well, let's go and pick a lucky winner. We have a $15 Starbucks card we're giving out to one of the attendees today. And can you all see the spinning wheel?
No.
Oh, wait. What's the spinning wheel? I got to see this. What are we talking about?
Yeah, man.
I have I'm sharing. Okay, let's share again.
Here's what I should do. I need to stop sharing. Let me stop sharing with you guys. I was playing around with the chat here. I'm sure I can figure this out. Just give me a second.
Okay. It's a little red button says stop sharing typically.
Oh, it's right there in my face. If it had teeth, it would have bit me. There we go.
Okay. Can you see the spinning wheel?
No. Yes.
Okay. I thought I had the spinning wheel up for the last few minutes. So here we go. I will click the button, pull the lever, and find the lucky winner. Can you see the wheel spinning?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Where's my name, man? Where's my name?
Chelsea Mansray.
Chelsea. Yay.
Are you on the call? This prize goes to a person that's present. So we'll take that one out and we'll do it again. Boom. Here it goes, spinning. Can you see it spinning?
Yes.
Yukio Nakayama, are you here? Remove that. We'll try it again. Pull the lever again. We'll pull it till it hits someone that's live on the call.
They have to stay till end of the event.
Right. Charles Lemire. Look at you. It stopped.
Yes, come on.
Get out of here, Charles. I will email you the Starbucks gift card immediately after the meeting. So you'll have this card within the hour. Lucky you, Charlie.
See, your return of investment is too quick with us. Anyway, thank you very much for everyone. Thank you very much, Gerb, for your timing and a beautiful presentation. And we have a next week speaker. And who is the next week speaker, Herb?
Is Anna Tan.
Good.
Here, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Anna Tan is scheduled for next week. So please show up and find out how the average person can be an owner in multi-million-dollar real estate. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next week.
Take care, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.